Friday marks the commemoration of Jesus' arrest, trial, suffering, crucifixion, death, and burial. Based on the Jewish custom of a day being marked from sundown to sundown, the arrest of Jesus, though shortly after the Thursday meal, was already considered to be Friday. Hence the arrest being on the same day as the trial and the crucifixion. This night marks the darkest night in the history of the world. The word Tenebrae means darkness. And in this Tenebrae service, the service will increasingly become darker, symbolizing the events that lead to the death of Jesus. Yesterday was Maundy Thursday. It was characterized by three things: the new commandment to love one another, Jesus washing the disciples' feet, and the Last Supper. After the Last Supper, Jesus and the disciples sang a hymn, and then they went out to the Mount of Olives, to a place called the Garden of Gethsemane. The sun sets, and the day changes from Thursday to Friday. Our Good Friday reading comes from Mark 14 and 15. They went to a place called Gethsemane, and Jesus said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took with him Peter and James and John and began to be distressed and agitated. And he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and keep awake." And going a little further, he threw himself on the ground and prayed. If it were possible, the hour might pass from him. He said, "Abba, Father, for you all things are possible. Remove this cup from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." Then Jesus returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. Jesus said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? Enough! The hour has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up. Let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand."
Were you there when they betrayed our God? Were you there when they betrayed our God? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they betrayed our God?
Immediately, while Jesus was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. And with him there was a crowd with swords and clubs, from the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Arrest him and lead him away under guard." So when he came, he went up to Jesus at once and said, "Rabbi," and kissed him. Then they laid hands on him and arrested him. But one of those who stood near drew his sword and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Then Jesus said to them, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me, as though I were a bandit? Day after day I was with you in the temple teaching, and you did not arrest me. But let the scriptures be fulfilled." All of them deserted him and fled.
Were you there when they took away my Lord? Were you there when they took away my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they took away my Lord?
And after the disciples had fled, Peter was below in the courtyard. one of the servant girls of the high priest came. When she saw Peter warming himself, she stared at him and said, "You also were with Jesus, the man from Nazareth." But Peter denied it, saying, "I do not know or understand what you are talking about." And he went out into the forefront court. Then the cock crowed. And the servant girl, on seeing him, began again to say to the bystanders, "This man is one of them." But again, Peter denied it. Then after a little while, the bystanders again said to Peter, "Certainly you are one of them, for you are a Galilean." But he began to curse, and he swore an oath. Peter said, "I do not know this man you are talking about." At that moment, the cock crowed for a second time. Then Peter remembered that Jesus had said to him, "Before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." And he broke down and wept.
Were you there when they denied my King? Were you there when they denied my King? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they denied my King?
As soon as it was morning, the chief priests had a consultation with the elders and the scribes and the whole council. They bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered him, "You say so." Now at the festival, he used to release a prisoner for them, anyone for whom they asked. Now a man called Barabbas was in prison with the rebels who had committed murder during the insurrection. So the crowd came and began to ask Pilate to do for them according to his custom. Then he answered them, "Do you want me to release for you the king of the Jews?" For he realized that it was out of jealousy that the chief priests had handed him over. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have them release Barabbas for them instead. Pilate spoke to them again. "Then what do you want me to do with this man you call the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "Crucify him!" Pilate asked them, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Crucify him!" So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released Barabbas for them. And after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord?
Then the soldiers led Jesus into the courtyard of the palace. And they called together the whole cohort. And they clothed him with a purple cloak. And after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on him. And they began saluting him. "Hail, King of the Jews!" They struck his head with a reed, spat upon him, and knelt down in homage to him. After mocking him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him out to crucify him.
Were you there when his head began to bleed? Were you there when his head
compelled a passerby who was coming in from the country named Simon to help Jesus carry his cross. And they brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. And they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him and divided his clothes among them, casting lots to decide which each should get. When it was noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m. At 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?"
Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they nailed him to the tree?
Then Jesus gave a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. Now when the centurion who stood facing him saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, "Truly this man was God's Son." When Pilate learned that Jesus was dead, he granted the body to a man named Joseph. Then Joseph brought a linen cloth, and taking down the body, wrapped it in the linen cloth, and laid it in a tomb that had been hewn out of rock. He then rolled a stone against the door of the tomb.
Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they laid him in the tomb?
darkness, overcome by fear, and I fall into the silence of despair. I don't expect you to love me, but I sure could use a friend. I'm down, and no one seems to care. Be still and listen to the silence. Be still. The silence hurts my ears. My soul is full of trouble. My heart is full of pain. And I don't see hope anywhere. Why do you reject me when I cry out your name? Oh my God, listen to my prayer. Be still and listen to the silence. Be still, the silence hurts my ears. Oh Lord, I cry out to you. Oh Lord, I cry to you. Oh Lord, I cry to you. And still, I listen to the silence. And still, the silence hurts my ears. Be still and listen to the silence. Be still, the silence hurts.
Mother, do not cry for me. All of this is exactly how it's supposed to be.
I'm right here. Can you hear my voice? My love, my Lord, my baby boy.
As they nail me to this tree, just know the Father waits for me.
God, how can this be your will? To have your son and my son killed.
Whatever happens, whatever you see, whatever your eyes tell you has become of me. This is not, it's not the end. I am making all things new again.
I remember when you were born in that manger where I first held you in my arms. So many miracles and lives you've changed. In this world that pays you out with all this pain.
And as they nail me to this tree, just know the Father waits for me.
God, how can this be your will? To have your son and my son killed.
Whatever happens, whatever you see,
Don't wanna see.
whatever your eyes tell you has become of me. This is not,
Tell me it's not.
it's not the end. I am making all things new again. Whatever happens, whatever you see, whatever your eyes tell you has become of me, this is not, it's not the end. I am